What if I told you 1969 is one of the biggest missing chapters in reggae history? Because before reggae became a worldwide religion, before the stadium tours, before the posters on every bedroom wall, there was this year when the rhythm got heavier, the shuffle got meaner, and a simple 7-inch could travel from a Kingston pressing plant to a London record shop and change somebody's whole life. I still remember the feeling, walking past a sound system on a hot evening, hearing that bass roll through a zinc fence like thunder you could dance to. Somebody shouting for the selector to wheel it. The smell of food on the corner. The crackle of a needle hitting vinyl. That's 1969 to me. And today we're counting down the top 10 reggae songs from 1969 we will never forget. Before we start, drop your city in the comments. I want to know where you first caught reggae. Was it Kingston, London, Birmingham, New York, Lagos, Toronto? A little record shop down the road? Tell me. All right, turn up the volume. No filler, just roots, stories, and straight classics. This one doesn't kick your door down. It walks in slow, like a man who's been trying for too long and still refuses to give up. I remember hearing it late at night on a quiet radio, one of those moments where the world is sleeping and the song feels like it's talking to only you. It's reggae, yes, but it's also gospel, soul, and straight life experience rolled into one. Fun fact, Jimmy Cliff wrote it during a time when he was struggling to make it overseas, and you can hear that hunger in how the melody climbs, like somebody reaching for the other side of a hard season. So why does it get overlooked in 1969 talk? Because when people say 1969, they picture upbeat movers and sound system weapons. But this tune reminds you, reggae was also a place to sit with pain and still find faith. Stay with me, because the next one flips the mood completely.
All right, C-Trends fam, let's keep it real. We're pouring our hearts into bringing you the best celebrity news and music deep dives. What? Check it. A massive 98% of you aren't subscribed yet. Subscribing is how you can truly support us, helping us grow and create even better content. If you're vibing with what we do, take a sec to hit that subscribe button. It's free and makes a huge difference. Plus, ring that notification bell so you never miss out. Let's flip that 98% and build this C-Trends family together. Your support is everything.
Now we're in the yard, for real. Sweet and dandy is joy with dirt under its fingernails. Country wedding energy, big smiles, and a groove that makes you move, even if you swear you're not dancing today. And in 1969, this tune wasn't just popular. It won the Jamaica Festival Song Competition, which tells you how deep it hit the people at the time. I can picture it. A little speaker outside a shop, somebody selling records inside, and every few minutes you hear that hook again because the selector can't help it. Wheel and come again. Fun fact. It sits in that sweet spot where reggae is getting heavier, but it still has that rock-steady bounce in its bones. That's why it plays so good on a sound system and in your kitchen. Why it fades in some greatest hits lists? Because later Maytel's songs got bigger global stories attached. But real heads know, this one is foundation music, a festival champion you can still play today. And here's the part most people never connect. The next record shows how reggae started moving like a rumor through the UK. If you ever wondered how reggae became a weapon in London dance halls, this tune is one of your answers. Return of Django is an instrumental, but don't let that fool you. This thing talks without words. It's like a cowboy movie in rhythm form. Tight rhythm, bold horn lines, and that feeling like the tune is strutting. I remember the first time I heard it properly. Not on a big fancy system, on a small speaker that still couldn't hide the swing. Somebody told me, this is Lee Perry style. And even if you didn't know the man's full story yet, you could hear the imagination in the sound. Fun fact, the single entered the UK chart in October 1969 and stayed there for weeks. Proof that reggae didn't need permission to travel. Why some people forget it now? Because later dub records took the spotlight. But in '69, Django was one of those tunes that made new listeners say, "Hold on, what is this?" Hold that thought, because we're about to step into an early Marley moment people don't talk about enough. Before the world crowned Marley the global king, there were these earlier cuts, when he still sounded like he was fighting for space on the radio. Soul Shakedown Party is pure invitation. Come out, come dance, bring your troubles and drop them at the door. It's early reggae with a smile, but the groove is serious. I always picture it playing from a little record shop speaker, one of those places where you walk in just to browse and walk out broke with a bag of 45s. Fun fact, this tune is tied to that Leslie Kong world, the producer lane that helped push Jamaican music into wider reach through labels and overseas releases. Why it gets underrated? Because people jump from early ska rocksteady straight to roots Marley. But this is the bridge. It's the sound of reggae learning how to speak to the world. Reset time. So far, we've covered Heartbreak Faith, Jimmy Cliff, Festival Joy, Maytales, UK dance floor pressure, Upsetters, and early Wailers energy. And I still haven't told you about that radio ban controversy. It's coming. And next, this is where 1969 starts to feel like a real international moment. This song is sunshine with a message. In 1969, when the world felt tense and loud, Jimmy Cliff drops a tune that says basically, look around, there's beauty here, and we can build something better. It's hopeful without being soft. I remember hearing it and thinking, this is reggae that can sit next to soul, pop, anything. That's why it mattered, because it didn't lock itself in one corner. Fun fact, it's often pointed to as Jimmy Cliff's international breakthrough around that time, and you can hear why. It's built to travel. Why some people don't tag it as a hardcore reggae classic? Because it's too universal for some lists. But reggae has always had that side, the side that reaches across borders. Stay with me, because the next one is where the behind-the-board story starts heating up. Alright, remember earlier when I said one tune basically took a flight and came back different? This is that one. It Mek has that playful bounce, that streetwise humor, and that sing-along power that made people feel like they were part of something, even if they didn't grow up in Jamaica. But here's the behind-the-scenes part most people never heard. Fun fact, the song was recorded in Jamaica, and then the brass parts were added later in the UK, like the record crossed the ocean and got dressed up for a bigger stage. That little detail matters, because it shows you what 1969 really was. Reggae stretching, adapting, finding new rooms to echo in. And it worked. It Mek hit the UK chart and became one of those tunes people could whistle without even realizing they were learning a whole culture. Why does it get overshadowed? Because Israelites cast a long shadow in the story. But It Mek is proof Decker wasn't a one-moment wonder. He had a run. Hold that thought, because we're walking straight into the song that got people whispering, laughing, and clutching their pearls. All right, this is the one I teased. The radio ban, the drama, the don't say the title energy. Wet Dream is a classic 1969 era hit not just because of the groove, though the groove is sweet, but because of what happened around it. Here's the careful, fair version. In interviews and reports over the years, it's been widely said the song was considered too explicit by some broadcasters. The BBC reportedly played it only a couple of times before it was banned, and DJs were instructed to refer to it without saying the title. Basically, a record by Max Romeo. Max Romeo himself famously claimed it was about something innocent. People mention the leaky roof explanation, but the public reaction tells you how it landed in that moment. And here's the twist. The controversy didn't kill it. It fed the mystique. The song still became a UK top 10 hit in 1969, which shows how reggae could push through gatekeeping even when the doors were half closed. That's why this tune isn't just music, it's history. It's a snapshot of censorship, culture clash, and reggae refusing to behave. Reset time. We've hit festival glory, UK chart movement, early Wailers, and now the big radio controversy. And we're entering the top 3, where 1969 stops being a cool year and starts being a global turning point. Now, if you think you know what's next, stay with me. This is the one that kicked the door open. Yes, it was recorded and released earlier, but 1969 is when it exploded internationally. And most importantly, it became the first reggae song to hit #1 on the UK charts. I still remember older heads describing that moment like it was yesterday. Hearing patois on mainstream radio, people singing along without fully understanding every word, but feeling the struggle and the spirit anyway. Fun fact, Israelites wasn't just a UK story, it also broke into the US top 10, which was a huge deal for Jamaican music at that time. Why it still matters? Because it proved reggae could travel without losing itself. It didn't flatten the accent, it didn't sand down the message, it just arrived as it was. And the next one? Different flavor, same power, and the cover versions alone tell you how deep it went. If Israelites is the breakthrough headline, Monkey Man is the tune that kept the streets dancing. This song feels like a whole scene. Dynamic Studios in Kingston, Leslie Kong producing, Toots singing like a man laughing and hurting at the same time. It's playful, but it's sharp. It's reggae that can smile while it's telling you something real about pride, love, and getting left behind. Fun fact, over the years, Monkey Man has been covered again and again by artists in ska, pop, and beyond, which tells you the song has bones. Why some people underrate it in the serious history talk? Because it's fun. But don't get it twisted. Fun is part of the culture. Sound system nights aren't lectures. They're life. Vibe with me to the end, because #1 is going to hit different, and it's tied to a story people don't expect.
All right, C-Trends fam, let's keep it real. We're pouring our hearts into bringing you the best celebrity news and music deep dives. But check it, a massive 98% of you aren't subscribed yet. Subscribing is how you can truly support us, helping us grow and create even better content. If you're vibing with what we do, Take a sec to hit that subscribe button. It's free and makes a huge difference. Plus, ring that notification bell so you never miss out. Let's flip that 98% and build this C Trends family together. Your support is everything.
All right, here's my surprise pick. Not because it's small. This tune was a real UK chart mover in late 1969, but because people don't always place it at the center of the story, and it deserves to be there.
It was Give Me Combat Carousel, Long Shot on.
Long Shot Kicked a Bucket is a sound system heater, a Trojan Records classic, and one of those rhythms that makes a whole room lean forward when it drops. But here's the part that makes it even more 1969. Fun fact, the song is famously connected to a real Jamaican racehorse, and the story of that horse's death helped inspire the tune. That's why it has that bugle call vibe and that strange, unforgettable hook. Why it gets overlooked by newcomers, because it's not always the first name they learn. But if you want the truth about 1969, about reggae moving through UK dance halls, record shops, and youth culture, this tune is a key. Real heads keep this one like a secret key, but it's time to say it out loud. 1969. Reggae wasn't a warm-up, it was a takeover. So what does this list prove? It proves reggae history isn't just the same 10 songs everybody repeats. It's bigger, deeper, more human. 1969 gave us joy tunes, struggle tunes, dance floor weapons, and even a controversy that showed how culture clashes can't stop a great record from spreading. Now I want to hear from you. Which tune are you adding to your playlist first? And what should we dig into next? Early 70s roots, UK lovers rock, or 80s dancehall? If you want more deep dives like this, hit like, subscribe, and we'll keep the roots culture alive, one classic at a time.